Hey, Battle Bill, here with another video, getting some more Season 12 Go Battle League battles, these taking place in the Open Ultra League meta. In today's video, we have a submission from a fellow PvPer of the community, a very special submission by dragonite, because this is literally his legend team. One of the very first legends in all of Go Battle League Season 12 has submitted his legend team for the content, for us to shoutcast some battles, and we're gonna see a bunch of battles that lead up to him making that eventual hit to the 3000 elo. So right off the bat, I can highly recommend this team because clearly he was able to use it for success. We have a collection of battles here. We're going to run through them. I actually slowed them down a bit so we can get a better idea of the team comp, the plays he's making, and see the situations that he plays out and truly get the best understanding that we can so that you can use this team and have some success and hopefully make a last minute push or at least some last minute elo gains to in Ultra League before the meta runs out, because there's a couple days left before we move on to the Master League meta and I think the Evolution Cup. So without further ado, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's jump right into these battles. Drade, thank you so much for the submission. It's an honor to be able to shoutcast your legend push battles. In this first matchup, he has a terrible lead, safe swaps into Trevenant, and then is faced with a terrible hard counter. Will he be able to play his way out of that? Now, we got Ember, Kanto Ninetales going up against his Trevenant. He's throwing the Shadow Ball here, obviously, because it's going to be big neutral damage. Could have potentially played the bait game. Will he be able to flip switch in this circumstance? Does he decide to use a shield here? He does, because at least at this point, even though the Embers are going to be chunking, would probably lose the 2 shield. In the 1 shield scenario, he will be able to get off Seed Bombs and flip switch, so the opponent's going to have to decide to use a shield if they want to keep the Scrafty aligned with his G-Fisk, and they make a crucial error there and not trying to keep alignment, or at least that's what it seems. He is at a shield disadvantage. The opponent is deciding that, you know what, they'd rather come in with Tentacruel, because I guess they feel like Tentacruel with energy and also Scrafty alone will both counter the Stunfisk that he has. He's able to get off a Shadow Ball, and this opponent is holding on to shields at every cost. He then comes back in with his Stunfisk, and their last mon is a Scrafty, which he's able to meet with the main highlight of today's team comp and the video, the Shadow Granbull. The Shadow Granbull is going to absolutely wall and deal insane charm damage, being double super effective to the Scrafty. But now he's met with a 2-shielded Tentacruel that's going to try to jab all the way down. He's going for the first shield, throwing this crunch. Will he get the debuff? He is able to get the debuff. The charms are chunking even though they're resisted. Comes in with the Galarian Stunfisk, is going to let the first Scald come through, maybe even an Acid Spray bait, ends up being a Scald. They could have went bait, even though there was a strong chance he wasn't going to shield there, because Scald obviously does not one-shot, but they could have potentially went for the Acid Spray bait to debuff his Galarian Stunfisk so that if they were able to get the multiple Scalds after, it would do more damage. But regardless, they're not going to be able to get to that many moves, and he's able to mud shot all the way down, so overcoming a tough lead, a tough safe swap, and still able to win with this team comp. Huge, very smart plays. Awesome recognition of his situations. Getting into the next matchup, we have a good lead with Galarian Stunfisk on a Pidgeot lead. They safe swap into Cobalion. He is able to match that with Trevenant. Trevenant has to watch out for the Stone Edges coming from the Cobalion, because they will do about half of Trevenant's health, and Cobalion now with double kick is generating energy relatively quickly and could do a good chunk in that sense. He's able to land his Shadow Ball. The Cobalion throwing the Stone Edge, he lets that come through just because of the pure fact that, you know, he already landed the Shadow Ball, does not have to worry about the Cobalion getting to another Stone Edge before he's able to get to his charge move that will take out the Cobalion. In this case, it ends up being a resisted Seed Bomb, but even though it's resisted, it does plenty of damage. They then come back in with a Pidgeot. Pidgeot hard walls Trevenant. He's going to get off a little bit of damage, but the Pidgeot's going to be able to comfortably farm down the Trevenant's remaining health. The one positive here thing is, even though with the Pidgeot farming all the way down, Pidgeot's only charge move access is on flying type charge moves, so Galarian Stunfisk absolutely hard walls Pidgeot no matter the energy that it has. They're running the House Star team of double Swords of Justice with Pidgeot, and he's able to hard wall the Virizion that swaps into the Galarian Stunfisk with his Granbull. Does he commit a shield? He does decide to commit the shield, going to take the fact that a little bit of extra health with the Granbull and being able to charm down the Virizion and then charm down a little bit of the Pidgeot and get off this crunch is going to be valuable damage and energy that was worth shielding for. Now, considering the circumstance, it makes sense because you don't want to let your Granbull go down there and then potentially take damage on your Galarian Stunfisk when you already have positive alignment and can commit the shield and charm essentially all the way down, knowing that the Pidgeot really can't do any damage to his Galarian Stunfisk here. So he's just going to build up to 2 rock slides. Even if he throws on bad timing, it's not going to make too big of a deal. He ends up CMPing, so essentially throws on good timing regardless. The Pidgeot can go for another Feather Dance, it can go for a Brave Bird, either or, whatever their choice is. 2 rock slides should take out, and honestly, even if 2 rock slides don't take out, because the Galarian Stunfisk's health is so debuffed at this point, the okay, never mind, it does take out. I was gonna say he's gonna get to a 3rd one before anything else happens, and it would be GG in that match regardless of their play. Getting into the next matchup, we have a Galarian Stunfisk on a Shadow Dragonite lead. This is another positive lead, but with the recent season 12 move update, it's not as positive with the Galarian Stunfisk because they can throw Super Power. They have a little sneaky damage that Dragonite can now throw at Stunfisks, and then the opponent swaps and catches a Rock Slide onto their own Galarian Stunfisk. So that's a huge play for their opponent to try and play out of this disadvantage that they started at. Now, Drade is able to match the Galarian Stunfisk with his Trevenant, which is another pretty hard counter for his opponent's line. Going to build up a massive amount of energy, throwing the Shadow Ball here. Going to do a big chunk or potentially get the shield. Essentially, his goal is, well, maybe his goal is still to keep alignment. Even though Shadow Granbull will wall the hell out of Dragonite, you don't know what the opponent's last mon is that could do well against Galarian Stunfisk. So we'll see how Drade decides to play this. He's over farming a bunch here. The opponent even gets to another charge move. Is he going to opt and use a shield or let his Trev potentially barely survive? He uses the shield. Trev would have held on maybe with like 1 HP though, and then the opponent could have flipped switch, which would have been a bit unfortunate. Gonna go for the Seed Bomb. The opponent probably lets us come through and then farms down with the Dragonite. Exactly, so they'll take their shield advantage and not get switch. And then they throw their charge move, so all the extra energy Drade was able to farm up goes to waste. He then comes in with the Granbull. They come in with the Registeel to match a Granbull. So even though he was able to keep alignment, it ends up not making much of a difference because Galarian Stunfisk is lining up with a Registeel regardless, and the Dragonite ends up on his Granbull. He goes all the way up to the Earthquake and throws a Rock Slide bait. Huge play there. Gets the Registeel's first shield. They're going to go for a charge move, going to be a Focus Blast. Could have potentially been a Zap Cannon bait, only on the off chance that, you know, he decides he's going to shield and not call the move, and the Zap Cannon would have obviously been super resisted, but could have potentially gotten a debuff and been a bait move essentially, even though it was more energy. But the opponent decided to take the safe route, just going straight Focus Blast. Drade is able to pull off double baits of Rock Slides, which is going to be huge for him here because based on that double bait scenario, because Registeel would have potentially proved a problem considering his shield disadvantage, he's able to get off the Earthquake and almost one-shot the Registeel's remaining health. The opponent makes another good play though, and he needed to throw the Rock Slide, land on the Registeel. Instead, the Registeel swaps out and catches the Rock Slide on their Granbull. On their Dragonite. His Granbull comes back in. The Registeel is getting to a move, and even though this is a Shadow Granbull, it's not glassy enough to get one shot by a Zap Cannon. Going to be able to charm down the Registeel, and it's GG's for that match. So shout out to his opponent though, considering the disadvantage they were at. These are some insanely high level gameplay type plays, just based on the circumstances. Of course, you got to be some of the best PvPers in the game if you're making a legend push this early into the season. Getting to the next matchup, he has a negative lead with Galarian Stunfisk on a Scrafty lead, and we're seeing how he played out of this scenario, considering he is ABA weak to dark types in the form of Scrafty or Obstagoon. What you could probably also do is similar to the team that I was using to push in Ultra League is essentially lead Granbull if you want to be ABB strong to it. His opponent makes a huge play there, catching the Seed Bomb on their Talonflame, so he's at even more of a disadvantage because he built up all that extra energy and is not able to throw any of the Seed Bomb damage at the Scrafty. Ends up landing on the Talonflame, does get his opponent's first shield, but the Talonflame is feasting right now. Is he going to find this shield valuable and worth it to get off his Shadow Ball? He decides not to. The Flame Charge takes out his Talonflame's remaining health, and he has to come back in with Galarian Stunfisk. Now, this team will struggle against Talonflames based on the pure fact that, you know, Trevenant and Granbull are not going to have a great matchup there, and the Galarian Stunfisk one's a bit awkward. Rock Slide almost one-shots in Ultra League, but does not, and Talonflame can win the matchup against Galarian Stunfisk depending on the circumstances. He's going to get a Rock Slide off here, get his opponent's last shield. The opponent, are they going to be able to incinerate down based on the fact he literally has a Shundo? They were not able to, but the opponent recognizes the fact that, oh my god, these plays are insane, recognizes the fact that he's not going to be able to get the farm down and catches the Rock Slide on the Scrafty. The Scrafty now comes in, throws a charge move at his Granbull, should be a foul play, does a decent chunk because again, Shadow Granbull is super glass. The Talonflame is coming back in. They should be at the move now, going to have to commit the shield because that Galarian Stunfisk is completely dead, and we still don't even know what the third mon is, so we really need to hope it's some sort of Scrafty / Obstagoon type where the Granbull could potentially charm all the way down, but the circumstances are not looking great because the Granbull is just taking so much health. So he lost lead and then lost swap, and then the opponent made some really good plays. The last mon ends up being a Shadow Swampert. They're going to get to 1 Hydro Cannon. This is going to be GG. But this was a match that, you know, sometimes you're just not going to be able to play out of. You get RPS, which is rock, paper, scissors. You lose lead, lose swap, that type of thing. And if your opponent plays well enough, there's really not much you can do because no team comp is going to be perfect in the Go Battle League. Getting into the next matchup, we have a Galarian Stunfisk on an Alolan Ninetales lead. They save swap into Dragon Breath Giratina, and this is going to be a feast for the Shadow Granbull. They're going to get off a charge move, maybe an Ancient Power, maybe a Shadow Sneak. Both would be neutral, but not hitting hard enough with the Dragon Breath damage to even cause for concern for the Granbull to want to use a shield there. So the Granbull is able to farm all the way down, have a decent chunk of health left, and get to a charge move. Fully expecting the Alolan Ninetales to come back in, not to reveal the third, and that ends up being what happens there. He's over farming a bit here, going for the close combat because that's going to hit for neutral damage and do a whopping amount of damage to that Alolan Ninetales, as you'll see there. The Granbull then goes down, so it was a smart play, of course, to wait till the very last moment to throw that close combat, just based on the pure fact that it will debuff your defense. So you want to maximize getting off as many charms as possible, and then throw the close combat so it can, you know, do the total amount of damage that you want to get off. The opponent then comes in with a Swampert into his Galarian Stunfisk, and just like in the match before, he's able to RPS his opponent, this time with Trev on Swampert, and that ends up being GG's for that match right there. Getting to the next one, we have Galarian Stunfisk on the Alolan Ninetales lead. They then save swap into their own Galarian Stunfisk, and Trevenant is going to be the best answer for opposing Galarian Stunfisks on this entire team comp. He's going to go straight for the Shadow Ball, expecting the Stunfisk not to shield here. Does a huge chunk of the Stunfisk's health, and Trevenant essentially just needs to eat a bunch of Rock Slides and see how the Galarian Stunfisk is going to decide to use its own shields. Because essentially now that he's landed the Shadow Ball, he doesn't have to shield until the Galarian Stunfisk decides to shield if they decide to. Picking off another Rock Slide here, he's over farming a bit. The Shadow Claws should be enough with the C-Bomb. Maybe the C-Bomb would leave the Stunfisk with a little bit more health or a little bit of residual health, so he's going straight for the Shadow Ball, ends up landing it, takes out the Galarian Stunfisk's remaining health in a positive situation because he's able to keep alignment. The Alolan Ninetales comes in for the Charm Down. He throws at great timing, gets to that Seed Bomb just in time before the charm goes through and registers, gets a little bit of chip damage on the Alolan Ninetales, but Galarian Stunfisk walls us regardless. They then come in with a Shadow Swampert to be met by the Shadow Granbull, and this match is essentially GG. It's GG for a multitude of reasons. You can see we're in the 2 shield scenario on both sides here, and the fact that, oh, they went big move hoping he wouldn't shield. And you could see that the charms before the Swampert even threw a move did half of the Swampert's remaining health. So he was going to be able to charm down there, and Galarian Stunfisk wall the Alolan Ninetales even without shields. Getting into this next matchup, we have Galarian Stunfisk on a Shadow Dragonite lead. He builds all the way up to the Rock Slide. The opponent thinks that he's going to throw right away, so they swap it to Crest to try and catch. It does not work. He matches the Cresselia with his Trevenant. The Trevenant can eat a couple moves from the Crest, technically could eat 2 Moonblasts there, should be able to get to 2 Shadow Balls before they get the 2 Moonblasts. Essentially it was going to take 2 moves whether they went Moonblast or potentially have Future Sight. The Cresselia definitely does not want to throw a Grass, not in the circumstance, and with that Shadow Ball landing, all he has to do is get off a Seed Bomb to take out the Cresselia's remaining health, and that's what happens. So he keeps alignment, which is huge. Fully expecting that Dragonite to come back in here. He has no leftover energy to get off a charge move on the Dragonite. So will the Trevenant be able to get to a Shadow Ball in time before the Dragonite can farm down? And the opponent is recognizing that the Trevenant might be able to get there, so they throw a Dragon Claw, take out the Trev's remaining health. Going to come in with his Granbull because Granbull walls Dragonite harder, so he doesn't mind taking the chance of whatever the opponent's last mon is by making sure that his Galarian Stunfisk doesn't have to take any potential superpower damage from the Dragonite. So very smart play on his end by making that call in 2 matches that we've seen so far throughout these sets. The opponent's last mon is a Galarian Stunfisk that they swap in. Now we're playing the Galarian Stunfisk mirror where he has an energy advantage because the crest was not able to catch the rock slide. The opponent recognizes that he has energy advantage, so they throw a rock slide to try to get the energy advantage for themselves. So Drade is now throwing another bait himself and throws a rock slide to get that energy advantage back. So it's just a game of mind games, essentially seeing who will bait who will make the call. Everybody's afraid, especially the opponent, because they are already at a disadvantage with that Dragonite lined up with the Granbull, and because he's able to land that bait, get off the Earthquake, do a majority of the Stunfisk's remaining health, that is going to be GG's for this match. The opponent throws a rock slide there, then they swap out, going for the Charm Down on the Granbull. Could potentially be a Hurricane, not a Hurricane, ends up being a superpower. I'm just saying, got to keep that in mind. Some Dragonites are holding on to Hurricane even though it's not the optimal moveset, just to catch fairies off guard in those kinds of situations where you're just assuming, you know what, I resist both moves, so I'm not going to shield no matter what, and you could potentially catch a fairy and win a match by running Hurricane. But ideally and optimally, you want to still be running Superpower on your Dragonite, just like that opponent still was. Against this next matchup, we have a Galarian Stunfisk on another Galarian Stunfisk mirror. This is going to be another mind game type play. He already lands his Earthquake. Does he decide to call this move because of the Earthquake landing? No, he decides to shield. He has an advantage. He wants to keep that advantage, going for a lot of mud shots, knows that the opponent won't get to another Earthquake until he gets to it because they're in the exact mirror, nobody baited, and then he swaps to catch the Earthquake on his Trevenant. Huge play because Trev, grass type, will resist that move, and now the Galarian Stunfisk has no energy, whereas his Galarian Stunfisk has a bunch of health and a bunch of energy, and all that costed him was one shield. They then match his Trevenant swap with a Shadow Gyarados, which is applying heavily oppressive Dragon Breath damage. He was going for another Seed Bomb. The Gyarados is going to get off this next charge move, being an Aqua Tail, should take out the Trev's remaining health because, of course, of that Shadow attack boost and the fact that Trev is glassy. Now the question is, does he come in with a Stunfisk and throw a Rock Slide, or does he reveal his third in the form of the Granbull? And that is what he decides to do. The Gyarados is going to get off another move here, going to be another Aqua Tail. We'll see how much damage it does. Does about half because, you know, Shadow on Shadow makes sense. Does the Stunfisk come in and try to get off a move on his Granbull just because they're super low health, but they might be able to survive the charms? It does not look like that's what they're aiming to do here. They come in with the Swampert throwing a Hydro Cannon. This is not looking like a great scenario though, because Swampert with 2 shields should counter his back line. So even though he played the beginning matchups as well as he possibly could, he's not sitting in a great situation here, just based on his main Swampert answer, Trevenant, not being alive any longer. He throws a Crunch at the Swampert, hoping for the Crunch debuff. Unfortunately, unable to get it. The Swampert going for another Hydro Cannon here, throwing it relatively quickly because they don't want to take any more charm damage from the Granbull. Coming back in with his Galarian Stunfisk, going for back-to-back Rock Slides that would maybe take out the Swampert's remaining health, and the opponent makes a top-tier play, recognizing that, catching the Rock Slide on their Galarian Stunfisk, because that might have been his win con. Now the opponent is getting to a charge move. Did they build up enough for the Earthquake? No, it ends up being a Rock Slide, which has a little bit of chip damage here. He is at 2 Rock Slides again, so we may be able to find out, will 2 Rock Slides take out this Swampert's remaining health? The first one goes through, gets the shield. He has to go for the next one because he's not going to be able to outpace. The Hydro Cannon is most likely coming through. Will this take out the Galarian Stunfisk's remaining health? It does not. Barely. He survives with 1 HP. That Galarian Stunfisk landing the Rock Slide previously in this matchup is going to be huge in determining the winner. Honestly, if that Rock Slide from the Galarian Stunfisk did not land, if he did not get off that slight bit of chip damage, he would have been able to mud shot the Swampert down before it was able to mud shot down the Stunfisk. And now Swampert stays a Galarian Stunfisk counter confirmed, whereas the vice versa could have been true considering the circumstances. Getting to this next matchup, we have a Galarian Stunfisk on a Dragon Breath Giratina altered lead, which is a positive matchup for the Galarian Stunfisk because it resists all the Dragon Breath damage, would resist any Dragon Claws. The only thing it's taking neutral from is a Shadow Sneak, which is what's coming through. He decides to go straight for the Earthquake. Will the Giratina altered commit? Probably not, but they are staying in this lead, which is screaming that their backline is also weak to Galarian Stunfisk, because this is not a great matchup for Giratina Altered. Stunfisk can win this comfortably and leave this scenario with some residual energy. So we'll see how the remainder of this gets played out. He lands back-to-back Earthquakes. You can see how low the Giratina Altered is now. Can honestly probably just commit to a mud shot down, considering the health bar and how little damage Giratina is doing to his Stunfisk. And it looks like that's not what he's going to decide to do. would rather preserve the health on his Galarian Stunfisk, going to land this Rock Slide, win out the Zero Shield, and we'll see what his opponent's back mons are. He has Tapu Fini in the back, so he swaps into his Trevenant to then lure out the other potential mon that would have been weak to Galarian Stunfisk, which is the Registeel. Trevenant on Registeel is still a positive matchup for the Trevenant, so honestly, Trev might be able to sweep here depending on how they decide to play the shielding scenario, and still has a situation where he can line up his Shadow Granbull with the Tapu Fini in the back. So it's looking like, oh my god, they're running Flash Cannon, holy Christ. It's looking like it should be GG's regardless, but shout out to them running Flash Cannon, because I guess Zap Cannon is not a guaranteed debuff anymore, and Flash Cannon would do more damage in like this specific circumstance while being less energy. I guess that could be a route, could be an option depending on your team comp to potentially bring Flash Cannon Registeels back into the meta. Very unlikely, but could be possible. Either way, the Registeel is low enough, probably comes in. Oh, he does not. I was gonna say probably comes in with the Shadow Granbull. Maybe he was worried that they got some residual energy and we're gonna get off a charge move. But regardless, in the 2 shields, Shadow Granbull, all it needs to do is double shield and charm all the way down, and this match is going to be GG against his opponent. So we'll just watch this out, play this out. You'll see all the water guns. They're adding up, don't get me wrong, but the opponent is not getting the 2 surfs that were going to be necessary. The Registeel's at 1 HP, and that is going to be GG's for the final match of this collection of battles. So he sent me those collections. They got him to like the 2970s. He did a set where he didn't record, went 2 and 3 to 2960. Decided because he didn't think he was going to hit Legend on the next set, not to record his battles at 2960. Ended up going 5-0, and that is the 3001 mark for him hitting Legend with this team comp. So again, a team comp I can highly recommend. It's super similar to the one that I showed you a couple days ago where I ran Tapu Fini instead of Shadow Granbull. Clearly he popped off. As you can see, Shadow Granbull making huge differences and dividends with the heavy fast move damage it's able to apply in, you know, the circumstances where it was most useful, which could be a difference maker. Plus not having that water typing could help against, you know, opposing mons like Trevenant. So as always, let me know your thoughts and opinions on the battles in the comment section below. Also, if I'm able to get my hands on more of this, do you want more and more potential Legend content where I shoutcast other people's battles? My elo is not too far off, but honestly, people hitting Legend this early in the season really goes to show the top tier skill that we have in the community. Drade clearly expressed it, and so did a lot of his opponents. So thank you so much for submitting these battles, and if anybody else would like to, the link for submissions is in the description of this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video.